we'll get right into it. A couple of series in the Western Conference, like I mentioned, still to be finalized here on the final day of the regular season, but every matchup is locked and loaded for the East. In your opinion, which series is the most appetizing? Lightning versus the Canadiens. Sabres, after breaking their drought, they get the Bruins. Dominant Hurricanes against the Senators, or the battle for PA, Penguins and Flyers? Which series you jacked up for the most in the East?
The Sabres series for sure. Just everything that they've endured, especially the fan base. I mean, my God, 14, 15 years, longest drought in the history of the league. That fan base is starving for this. And it looked like the Sabres were toast back in December. Just the turnaround that they had. Kudos to Lindy Ruff and the entire roster. I think that's going to be a dynamite series. And, the longer Buffalo can go, I think it would just be a terrific story for the league for sure.
I almost look at the Eastern Conference this year and compare it a little bit to the AFC NFL playoffs that we just had, where it feels like the Florida Panthers were the Chiefs, right? They were the team that was always there out of the East. But Florida's out this year. And it's like we all looked at Buffalo's chance of maybe making it to the Super Bowl was last year. I kind of feel that way with Carolina. Feels like the door's open. This should be the year for them to finally get over the hump. Do you see it that way? Should they be the team to beat, or do they have the most pressure on them? And ultimately, do you think that they probably get there out of the East?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think they're the team that should get out of the East, and I think that there's a boatload of pressure on them, especially Rod Brind'Amour, who, again, has done a terrific job during the regular season, but nobody's going to point to that if they lose, in the second or third round again. So, and even can they get past the first round? This is going to be a difficult matchup. I mean, Ottawa is a heck of a hockey team. That Brady Tkachuk is starving to go on a long playoff run after watching his brother for the past couple of years. So he had that nice appetizer in the Olympics. That's going to be a hell of a series. I don't know if Carolina has what it takes to win it all, to be perfectly honest, but I don't know if they're going to win this series either. It wouldn't surprise me either way, whether they win or lose.
Talking to Brian Compton here on BetMGM Tonight, Westwood One Sports. Brian is the managing editor for NHL.com. You can find him on Twitter at BComptonNHL. Brian, look, I hate to be negative Nancy here, but do you like the current playoff format that started 12 years ago? Because honestly, love the Cup playoffs, but I think this current format sucks, and it leads to a lot of stale first-round matchups because there's only so many combos you can get. You have two division teams playing each other no matter what every year, and there's a decent chance you only play somebody within your division up until the conference finals. I liked it better when it was just standard 1 through 8 seeds based on the records, because for example, this year, you got Flyers, Penguins playing each other, and they're technically the 7th and 8th best teams in the conference. Like, those two teams should be playing Carolina and Buffalo, but because we got to keep it within the division, you're limited to who you can play. I think it's so dumb. Do you agree? Can we go back to just straight 1 through 8 seeds?
Pat, you know that I work for Gary Bettman, right? So I'm not going to sit here. You're putting me in a very difficult position here. My boss, Mr. Bettman, loves the divisional matchups in the first round. I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, I think Penguins Flyers is going to be off the charts entertaining for everybody. And you wouldn't have gotten it if we didn't have this format. So there are pros and cons, I understand, but I think the best team more often than not usually wins. The past 2 years, the Florida Panthers were the best team in the NHL. They won the Stanley Cup. Take the President's Trophy out of everything, because once the playoffs started, everybody knows it's a different animal. To backtrack for a minute, I mean, I think a lot of these teams that are in it are very fortunate that Alexander Barkov unfortunately had that season-ending injury in training camp, because had he not gotten hurt and Matthew Tkachuk had been healthy that first half of the year, Florida's in the playoffs again, and then Florida probably goes on a very long run again. So it's going to be entertaining, especially with what we were talking about before with the Sabres and Ottawa. There's going to be a lot of fun first-round matchups here for sure.
The two Eastern Conference teams we haven't touched on both finished with 106 points, Tampa and Montreal. Montreal last year got in. It felt like they were just kind of happy to be there, got this young core, and now there's almost expectations. Tampa obviously had that run with those Stamkos teams. Do you feel like this Tampa team is good enough again to make a run? And do you still feel like Montreal, are they just happy to be there? Or do you think this year they could make a deep run in the postseason?
They're certainly capable of going on a deep run. The problem is, and this goes back to Pat's point earlier, they have to get through Tampa Bay in the first round of the playoffs. This is a battle-tested team, a little bit banged up. Brandon Hagel's been dealing with some stuff, but I mean, of all the tremendous jobs that John Cooper has done over the years as Lightning coach, this might be his best work yet because Victor Hedman barely played. I mean, for the first 3 or 4 months of the season. So that's the guy who eats 26, 27 minutes every night. They still have, to me, the best goalie in these playoffs in Vasilevsky. I think the Bell Center is going to be phenomenal. It always is, especially come playoffs. This is going to be a very tough matchup for Tampa Bay as well, but it's going to be very difficult, I think, for Montreal to best Vasilevsky 4 times in 7 games. We'll see. They're capable of it, but without Noah Dobson, too, who was a tremendous addition last summer by the Canadiens, not having Noah Dobson for this first round is going to be awfully tough.
Yeah, of course. My Islanders gave him up. So, of course he had a tremendous year until he got hurt. And Brian, of course I had to put you on the spot and ask you about the current format, but you answered it, like a pro. So I appreciate you. We've seen teams who sneak into the playoffs make a run all the way to the cup because they have a goaltender who stands on his head and is absolutely dialed in and nothing gets past him. So I'll say out of the wild card teams that are currently wild card teams, I know it can change in the West here, tonight, but out of the current ones, the Bruins with Swayman, the Senators with Linus Ullmark, the Mammoth with Karel Vejmelka, and the Kings with Darcy Kemper, who do you think would be most likely out of those 4 to go on a legendary run as from a goaltender standpoint and lead their team to the Cup Finals in a stunner?
Best goalie of those 4? I know Ullmark won the Vezina a few years back, but I think Swayman's the guy of those 4. Having said all that, Pat, I love Utah. I really do. And part of it is bias because I've known Bill Armstrong, their GM, for 25 years. I just love everything he's done going back to his days with Arizona, just building it essentially from the ground up. They have so much young talent. I think Veggie is a pretty good goalie, to be perfectly honest. And I think the Delta Center is going to be a phenomenal atmosphere for these playoffs. Just everything that they've done since moving to Salt Lake has been just aces for them. Even including this new Zamboni, which is so freaking cool. That looks like the Mammoth while it's shaving the ice. Oh, it's so fantastic. But I think to backtrack and answer your question, I think Swayman's the best of the 4. But I really, really I love Utah's chances regardless of who they play in this first round.
We know the President's Trophy curse, Brian, and Colorado. They're going to have to try and get through that this year. Obviously, a ridiculously talented team. They won the Cup before a few years ago. Do you think they have what it takes? Like, does the curse worry you with Colorado? Is that really the only issue with them?
Yes and no. Obviously, when you go on the run that they've had, it never, or not, shouldn't say never, but it hardly bodes well in the playoffs, like you said. But they hit a little bit of a bump in the road in the second half, which I think is going to help them. Because if you go, we've seen it a couple of times, if you win 60-plus games, it's really hard to flip that playoff switch when the postseason gets underway here. So I like the Avalanche a lot. I'm not crazy. I know Scott Wedgwood has had a hell of a year, and Blackwood's a pretty good goalie in his own right, but I'm not crazy about their goaltending, especially as the postseason moves forward. But, they're just stacked from top to bottom. I mean, on the blue line, you got Makar, and, up front, all the way up McKinnon, and getting Nazem Kadri at the deadline. There's so much that Devontae's on the blue line as well. There's so much there, but I don't know if this goaltending is going to hold up for 4 rounds. We'll just have to wait and see.
Brian, is this the year that Connor McDavid kills 2 birds with 1 stone? Does he finally win the Stanley Cup and in the process break the drought for Canadian teams not winning the Cup? Habs in 93, the last one. Is this finally the year McJesus gets the monkey off his back, or do you think it'll be more postseason heartbreak for the Oilers?
I think it's more heartbreak, Pat. And to make it worse, I don't know if they get out of the first round. I'm not sold. I'm really not. I know how great he is. Their goaltending is weak at best, to put it mildly. Leon Draisaitl's banged up here. Obviously, he's going to play. It's playoff time. There's no way he's going to miss this series. But how healthy is he going to be? And I don't know if McDavid can do this by himself. I know we've seen it in the past. But there's so much parity in that division, in that Western Conference. I don't see it. I don't know if they might win a round here. They are not winning the Stanley Cup. I don't see it at all.
2-part question, put you on the spot. Who's your early pick to win the Cup? And then selfishly, as a Caps fan, I got to ask you your thoughts on Ovi. Do you think we saw him play his final game of his career the other day against Columbus?
I've been thinking. I really like Dallas. Mm-hmm. I have for a while. they've had a weird year. They had a pretty big slump recently, which maybe will help them here moving forward. I admire the job that Glenn Gulleton has done in his second stint, kind of like Lindy Ruff in Buffalo. I think Jake Ottinger is the real deal. I know he had that whole thing with Pete DeBoer last year. I think Jake's a hell of a goalie. I think he could win a Conn Smythe if Dallas does get the job done, which I think they will. To answer your second question, I think Ovi's coming back. I don't know if it's going to be one of these, Derek Jeter things where every arena gives him, flowers and whatnot at the end of the game next season. But I just think there's more there. There's no, unless it's a family thing and he's given up enough time with his wife and kids, that's perfectly understandable. He's 40, but there's gas left in that tank. He can still score goals. So as long as that's the case, I think he's going to play at least one more season.
Awesome stuff. B-Comp. Brian, it was great to catch up with you, brother. And I'm definitely going to be tracking you down again throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, hopefully Gary Bettman, is allowing you to come on the show after I put you on the spot with a question like that before. But in all seriousness, man, enjoy the last night of the regular season. The fun really kicks off here on Saturday. We can't wait to catch up with you soon.